My name is Megan Dixon, and this study is being completed as part of a master track degree program at Georgetown College. This study aims to see if a professional development on the interconnectivity of culture and academic achievement for English language learners can affect teacher attitudes. The school in this study is located in rural northeastern Kentucky. The school is the only one in the county and has roughly 370 students and is 97% Caucasian. The county itself has less than 9,000 people living in it. Because of the size of the school, there are few to no English language learners at any given time. Since the state of Kentucky requires no training or educational classes for working with EL students, the staff at the school has little to no training in the subject. This study aims to see if a professional development can begin to fill the gap in this lack of education. To begin, the researcher looked at prior studies done around similar topics. The researcher looked at prior studies regarding the impact of professional development, teachers' attitudes, and how trainings can impact teachers' attitudes. The researcher first had all participating teachers sign a consent form to participate in the project. Participating teachers then completed a survey before participating in a professional development regarding the interconnectivity of culture and academic achievement. After the professional development, teachers completed a second survey, allowed observations in their classrooms, and completed an interview. After gathering all the data, the researcher was able to identify themes within each group of data, the surveys, observations, and interviews. After identifying themes in individual pieces of data, the interviewer looked for themes present in all pieces of data in order to triangulate results. There were 10 teachers who participated in this study. They all signed consent forms prior to beginning the study, and all identities were protected. The surveys were completed anonymously, while interview and observation data was kept on a passcode-protected computer and will be destroyed at the end of the study. The participants range in teaching experience from this being their first year to more than 30, while one does not yet possess a teaching degree to one with a PhD. The first set of themes comes from the pre-survey, where teachers indicated a lack of training when working with students from a different culture. They thought cultural differences made it harder to work with students who were English language learners. However, they thought that they had a responsibility to create an inclusive classroom and that all students could benefit from having diverse cultures within the classroom. After completing the professional development, teachers completed another survey, observations, and interviews. The second set of themes comes from classroom observations and indicates that the teacher had created some sort of positive environment because the EL student seemed to interact well with peers, that the EL student was struggling with necessary vocabulary but was permitted to, against school rules, use their phone in class as a translator. They were given multiple ways to demonstrate knowledge, and the teacher offered one-on-one assistance to the EL student in addition to using their culture to help teach and learn about the other student's culture. The third set of themes comes from interviews and indicates that there's little to no previous experience working with EL students, that they thought it was important to make connections between cultures, that EL students should be allowed to share information about their culture with their peers, and that it was important to provide extra instruction and scaffolding to help the achievement of academic success of EL students. The fourth set of data comes from post-surveys and indicates that all students benefit when various cultures are in the classroom, that teachers should create inclusive environments and incorporate all cultures, and that EL students are just as academically capable as their English-speaking peers. After looking at each piece of data individually, the researcher looked at all the data from after the professional development to see which themes were present in all three. Those themes were that teachers lacked experience and training when working with EL students, that teachers created a classroom where EL students were welcome, that teachers attempted and some successfully incorporated students' culture to teach English and American culture, and that teachers provided extra attention and directions to support EL students' academic success. To the researcher, this indicates that teachers are aware that they have not been adequately prepared to work with English language learners. While they may not have been up to date on the latest theories or pedagogies regarding this group of students, All teachers showed a willingness to learn more. They were also able to begin implementing strategies learned through the professional development. For example, in one observation, an EL student did not understand what a cemetery was. The teacher, one-on-one, explained what it was and how Americans bury their deceased loved ones. She then asked the student about his culture, where he explained that they buried loved ones in mountains. This teacher was able to draw cultural connections in order to help the student learn a new word and explain a piece of her culture. Overall, teacher attitudes were positive about incorporating a culture in their classroom, but they struggled with the right practices to do it. The researcher then went back to the research to see if the themes found across the data are supported by prior research. The researcher found that many studies indicate that there is a lack of training for teachers regarding best practices when working with EL students. In addition, the researcher found that teachers in rural schools have been shown to have more positive attitudes towards working with EL students because they don't do it often and don't report feeling as overwhelmed as teachers who have many EL students in their classroom each year. In addition, studies have found that teachers tend to have positive attitudes about culture, but less positive attitudes about modifying coursework, which this researcher saw none of during the study. Moving forward, the researcher recommends more professional development and trainings for working with EL populations and more access to resources for teachers who work with the students. Teachers were open to the training for the study and worked to implement what they learned. It is recommended that the school continue on with educating its staff in order to best service the English language learner community. Since the school sees few EL students, there hasn't been a large push to educate teachers in this demographic, but this research shows how a simple professional development can be utilized to start bridging the educational gap. A full list of resources for this study can be found on an attached sheet of paper. Thank you.